The village of Suang Bin had always been swallowed by fog. Day or night, it was as though the sun never quite broke through the heavy mist that clung to the dirt roads. The fields, and the narrow alleyways, the air was thick, stale, and smelled faintly of decay. Koa had always known something was wrong with him. He didn't remember his mother, she had died giving birth to him. A fact everyone in the village whispered about in hushed tones. It was the curse of his birth. They said, a curse that had never left him. At 5 years old, Koa had begun to realize the oddity of his existence. It was the way people looked at him, or, more accurately, the way they avoided him. It started with small things. Neighbors would pull their children away when he walked down the street. Shops would close their doors just a little faster when they saw him coming. At first, he thought it was because of his quiet nature, his tendency to keep to himself. But then, one day, he saw it, the fear. He had been walking along the old cobblestone road near the market when a man, a farmer, turned to look at him. His eyes widened, and without thinking, Koa simply pointed at him. Just a brief movement, nothing special. The farmer had frozen, a look of horror crossing his face. Then he turned and ran off, as if the wind itself had taken his feet. Koa hadn't thought much of it, until he learned the man had died the very next day. It was a heart attack, they said, but Koa couldn't shake the feeling that his gesture had something to do with it. After that, things changed. The deaths came in waves. First, it was a stranger who passed through the village. Someone who had stopped to ask for directions. Koa had pointed at him. And within 2 days, the stranger was found dead by the river. Then it was Mrs. Mai, the old woman who lived by the bakery. She had been coughing, frail and pale, and one morning, Koa pointed at her too. The next night, she passed away quietly in her sleep. Each time, the villagers grew more fearful, more cautious. Whispers spread from door to door, carried by the wind, until no one would speak to him. They would avoid looking in his direction. But if Koa's eyes met theirs, there was always a flicker of dread. The elders had their theories. They told stories of dark powers and cursed bloodlines. They said Koa had inherited a gift from a long-forgotten ancestor, a gift of seeing death. But it wasn't just that he saw death, it was that he could make it happen. It was as if, with a simple motion of his finger, he could seal someone's fate. And as the deaths mounted, so did the terror. There was a particular day Koa would never forget. It was an overcast afternoon when he saw a group of children playing by the well near the village square. The sky was heavy, the air thick with an unsettling quiet. He didn't mean to, but his hand moved, and he pointed at one of the children, a girl, no older than 8. The others paused, watching him, but the girl simply smiled and waved. She didn't seem to understand the weight of his gesture. That night, the child was found by the well, her body pale and lifeless. The doctor said she had drowned. The villagers were certain she had slipped and fallen. But to Koa, it felt as though the pointing had cursed her. By then, the rumors about him had spread like wildfire. The boy who brings death. The cursed child. The one who points and kills. They called him many things. None of them kind. No one wanted to speak to him. No one wanted to be near him. But what they didn't know was that Koa wasn't the one who wanted this power. He didn't ask for it. It was a curse, a terrible, cruel gift that he couldn't control. And now, his ability was becoming something else. He began to have dreams, strange, twisted dreams, of other deaths. Of things he hadn't seen but somehow knew. He would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, his hand still twitching as if he had pointed at someone in his sleep. And the next day, someone would die. It was no longer just the villagers who feared him. It was as though the entire world had begun to sense his curse. And soon, he would learn that not all the deaths were accidental. And not all the villagers were innocent. Some knew more than they were letting on. And Koa was about to uncover secrets buried deep in the heart of Suang Bin. A darkness that would change everything. As the days passed, the air in Suang Bin grew heavier. The fog settling in deeper and thicker with every morning. It wasn't just the physical mist that haunted the village, it was the invisible dread that lingered in the hearts of the people. It was as if the very land itself had become cursed. soaking in the fear and hopelessness that surrounded Koa. Koa never intended for anyone to die. He couldn't control what he saw, nor could he stop the urge to point, to indicate the impending doom that was clearly written before him. But the village, his village, did not care for his intentions. All they saw was a boy who could kill with a single motion. A boy who walked the line between the living and the dead. It was an afternoon like any other when the village became fully aware of the curse that clung to him. Koa was wandering through the market, his eyes cast downward, trying not to meet anyone's gaze. The merchants hurriedly avoided him, their eyes darting nervously as he passed. He had learned to ignore them, to simply walk with his head down, for it was the safest course of action. But on that day, something was different. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped out in front of him, blocking his path. Koa instinctively halted, looking up at the stranger. The man had a rough, weathered face, a thick beard, and eyes that seemed to pierce through the fog itself. Koa didn't recognize him, but there was something about him that seemed out of place. The man's lips curled into a slow, almost mocking smile. He was clearly not a villager. "You are the boy they talk about, aren't you?" the man asked in a low, gravelly voice. His tone wasn't one of fear, but of amusement, as though he were speaking to a child playing a game. Koa swallowed, feeling a strange chill in his spine. I don't mean to. Don't mean to?" The man's voice cut through Koa's stammering. "You think you don't mean to? You think you're just unlucky? I know what you are. Boy." Koa's heart skipped a beat. The words felt like a prophecy, spoken by someone who had already seen the future. For a moment, the fog around them seemed to thicken, and Koa's fingers twitched, the urge to point rising within him. He fought it down, but the pressure in his chest was unbearable. I don't want this," Koa whispered, his voice barely audible. "I just want to be left alone." The man's smile widened, and for a split second, Koa saw a flash of something dark and hungry in his eyes. Without warning, the man reached out and grabbed Koa by the arm, forcing him to look up. "You can't run from it, boy," the man said, his voice low and full of malice. "You are the curse. You are the reason this village suffers." Koa tried to pull away, but the man's grip was like iron. Panic surged through him. His breath quickened as the feeling in his chest grew heavier, the compulsion to point overwhelming. The village around them began to fade, replaced by a strange vision, a vision of blood, death, and shadow. The man's grip tightened, and Koa could see the vision so clearly now. The man would die, a sharp pain in his chest, his eyes bulging out in agony. His body would fall to the ground, lifeless, and Koa knew he would be the one to blame. With a final burst of fear and instinct, Koa's arm jerked upward, and his finger shot out toward the man. A piercing scream echoed through the air as the man's body convulsed violently. His eyes widened in horror as his breath came in ragged gasps. Koa stepped back, his stomach twisting in dread. The scene before him unfolded in real time, just as he had seen it in his vision. The man's body shook, his skin turning pale, and then, just as Koa's finger fell back to his side, the man collapsed, crumpling to the ground with a sickening thud. For a long moment, the market was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. And then, as if the air had been waiting for it, the villagers began to scream. They ran, they shouted, they pointed at Koa with trembling hands, accusing him of murder. The rumors had become undeniable. The boy who pointed, the boy who killed. Koa stood frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. He had tried to avoid it, to stop himself from causing pain. But he couldn't. He never could. The villagers crowded around, their faces twisted in fear and hatred. They called for the elders, demanding that something be done. A few tried to approach the body of the stranger, but the moment they touched him, they recoiled, as if the man's body was burning with unnatural heat. His skin was too hot to touch. And then, through the chaos, an old woman stepped forward. Her eyes were sharp and knowing, and there was a strange, unsettling calm in her demeanor. Koa recognized her immediately. She was the village healer, one of the few people who had never looked at him with fear. Her name was Batu, and she had been the one to offer him comfort when his mother died. She moved toward Koa, her hands outstretched, her voice soft but firm. "It's not your fault, Koa," she said, "but you cannot stay here any longer." The crowd fell silent at her words. But Koa could see the unease in their eyes. They were no longer just frightened of him. They were terrified of what would happen next. Because the man wasn't the first. And he certainly wouldn't be the last. The following days in Suang Bin were shrouded in a dense fog. Just like the morning Koa had been born, the villagers, now more fearful than ever, whispered in corners and avoided Koa at all costs. He had become the living embodiment of death itself. Ba Tu, the healer, took Koa to her home after the incident in the market. Her house was small and simple, with the smell of herbs and incense lingering in the air. It was a place where she performed rituals to heal the sick. And Koa had always found solace in her presence. "You need to rest," Ba Tu said gently, leading him to a small room at the back of her house. "You've done nothing wrong, Koa, but the villagers, they will never understand." Koa nodded, though he could barely speak. His mind was still reeling from the vision of the man's death. The horrible convulsion of his body before he collapsed. Koa had seen death before. But this time was different. This time, it felt like something far more sinister was at play. That night, as Koa lay in the bed Ba Tu had made for him, he tossed and turned, unable to escape the haunting images. He could still see the man's lifeless body lying on the ground, his eyes wide in terror. But there was something else. Something Koa couldn't explain. He had seen the man before, the stranger who had died in the market. And yet, there was something wrong about him. Koa had always been able to see people's deaths before they happened. But this man, his death had felt different. It had been too deliberate, too controlled, as though the man had been waiting for it. Koa's breathing grew shallow as the thoughts plagued his mind. He tried to shake them off, to push them away, but they kept returning. The vision of the man with no shadow. The man who had come to the village for a reason Koa couldn't understand. The next morning, Ba Tu visited him again. She had a worried look on her face as she stepped into the room. "There is something you need to know, Koa," she said softly, sitting down beside him. "The man who died in the market, he wasn't just a stranger. His name was Vu, and he's been here before." Koa looked up, confused. "What do you mean? I've never seen him before." Ba Tu nodded, her expression grave. "He's not from here. Vu came to Suang Bin many years ago. And when he did, strange things began to happen. People started dying in unnatural ways. Just like what's happening now." Koa's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean unnatural ways? Like me?" Ba Tu's face darkened. "No, Koa, you are not the cause of these deaths. But Vu, he was a man who made a deal with something much darker than you can imagine." Koa's eyes widened. "A deal?" Ba Tu sighed, her voice growing soft as she spoke. "He made a pact with an ancient force. A force that feeds on death. And that force," she hesitated, choosing her words carefully, "it's still here, in this village. It's been here for centuries. Waiting for someone like you." Koa's mind spun. He had always believed his ability was a curse. A terrible gift that had isolated him from everyone he loved. But this was something far worse. "What do you mean?" Koa whispered, his voice shaking. "What does it want from me?" Ba Tu's eyes softened with pity. "It wants your soul, Koa, and it will do anything to get it." Suddenly, the door to the room creaked open, and a figure stepped inside. Koa froze as he saw who it was. It was Vu. But the man he saw now was not the same man who had died in the market. This version of Vu was different. His face was pale, his eyes sunken and hollow. There was no warmth in his expression, only coldness, pure, chilling coldness. "You shouldn't have brought him here." Vu's voice was low, like the rustling of dry leaves. "The boy is mine now." Ba Tu stood up quickly, her face flushed with fear. "No, Vu, you have no claim over him." Vu's lips curled into a sinister smile. "I don't need to claim him. His soul is already mine. All I need is for him to give in." Koa felt a chill run down his spine as Vu's words settled in his mind. His stomach twisted with dread. What did Vu mean by give in? And how could his soul already belong to this man? Before Koa could react, Vu raised his hand and pointed at him. The room grew cold, and Koa felt the pressure on his chest intensify. It was as if the air itself was pressing against him, suffocating him. "Come with me, Koa." Vu's voice was like a whisper in the wind. "You don't have to fight it anymore. You were always meant for this." Koa opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. His body felt paralyzed, his limbs frozen in place as if some unseen force held him captive. Va Tu rushed to his side, her hands glowing with a faint, golden light. "Koa, listen to me," she cried. "You're stronger than he is. Don't let him take you." But Vu's presence grew stronger, more overwhelming. The shadows in the room seemed to lengthen, swirling around him like a dark mist. Koa could feel the darkness closing in on him, the weight of it pressing against his mind. "Don't listen to her," Vu said, his voice now a low growl. "You belong to me now." Koa's vision blurred, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could see the shadows swirling around him, feel the cold fingers of death reaching for his soul. He knew he had to fight back. He had no choice. With every ounce of strength he had left, Koa forced his fingers to move. He raised his hand, slowly, painfully, and pointed. The room seemed to tremble as the air crackled with energy. Vu's face twisted in agony as he screamed, his body convulsing as if struck by an invisible force. The shadows around him writhed, then disintegrated into nothingness. Koa collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, his head spinning. Va Tu rushed to his side, her hands steadying him. "Are you all right?" she asked urgently, her voice trembling. Koa nodded weakly. I don't understand. What just happened?" Va Tu looked at him with a mixture of sorrow and understanding. "You've just fought back the darkness, Koa, but it's not over. The village is cursed, and so are you. Vu is just the beginning." Koa could hardly breathe. His chest was still tight from the encounter with Vu, his heart racing with the terror of what had just transpired. The room seemed to close in on him as Ba Tu helped him sit up, her hands gentle but firm. He could still feel the chill of the shadows that had enveloped him, the suffocating pressure of the darkness that had tried to claim him. I don't understand," Koa gasped, his voice weak. "What was that? Who is he?" Ba Thu's face had lost all its warmth, replaced by the grave expression of someone who had seen too much and knew too much. She stood silently for a moment, staring at the place where Vu had stood, as if expecting him to return. "That," she said finally, her voice low and almost mournful, "was Vu, the man you saw in the market. He is no ordinary person. He was once a man like any other. But now," she trailed off, her eyes distant, "now he is a vessel for something much darker." Koa's mind reeled. A vessel? The